Hi friends, and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon. I'm Maia, a singer-songwriter, video maker, Oakland native, and absolute geography geek. I'm also a huge history nerd. I love untold stories, gross facts, hidden secrets, and anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. Each day, I'm going to share some of my very favorite deep cuts with you. So let's dig into today's stories.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 mxmtoon.
Today, October 18th in 1867, Alaska was transferred to U.S. control from Russia in what became known as the Alaska Purchase. As you might guess, it's called that because the U.S. purchased Alaska for $7.2 million. In today's dollars, that's $132 million. Though $132 million seems like a huge amount of money, Alaska is so big that only equals out to about 2 cents per acre. To put all these numbers into a little more perspective, Alaska is about twice the size of Texas. Andrew Johnson was president, though he hadn't been formally elected. Rather, he became president after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. You're probably familiar with that story, John Wilkes Booth at the Ford Theater, etc., etc. Johnson was actually almost killed the same night as Lincoln. Booth had instructed a co-conspirator to kill Johnson at the hotel where he was staying, but the man backed out. Phew. Johnson came into power as Lincoln's vice president, right around the time the Civil War ended, but it was his Secretary of State, William Henry Seward, who was the man behind the muscle in the Alaska Purchase. Previously, Seward had been the governor of New York and a U.S. senator. He had also spent time as a practicing attorney and was the first lawyer to use the insanity defense in a courtroom. Getting Russia to give up Alaska wasn't a hard sell, so to speak, as they had been looking to get another nation to take over the land ever since they lost the Crimean War. They'd been trying to gain power over Turkey, but they ended up losing land in the battles instead when Britain and France joined forces to keep the Russian powers at bay. Alaska was difficult to travel to. Not many Russians lived there, and it was too difficult to defend in case of another war. They pretty much only used it to hunt fur and place Russian missionaries. They couldn't afford to lose more land in battle, so they decided to sell it instead. Seward organized the purchase with Russian minister Edward de Stockel. The two men were introduced by a journalist, Thurlow Weed. De Stockel was a minister to the United States, kind of like a UN position, and eventually it was on his recommendation that the emperor agreed to the sale. During the Civil War, he worked to keep relations with other countries positive, while the U.S. itself was enmeshed in inner turmoil. This made him a skilled diplomat and prepared him for the task of negotiating the sale of Alaska with Russia. He was also a huge fan of territorial expansion, so the acquisition of Alaska made total sense in his aspirations. Regular Americans weren't as enthused about the purchase as Seward himself. They thought the land was worthless and a silly addition to the American map. They came up with silly names for the whole endeavor, like Seward's Folly and Andrew Johnson's Polar Bear Garden. The newspaper, the New York Tribune, called it Walrussia. Johnson himself wasn't a popular president, so Americans found it easy to make fun of decisions that he supported. People got happier about the acquisition of Alaska when it was discovered that gold existed deep in the Klondike River. It became a mini gold rush, aptly called the Klondike Gold Rush. About 100,000 prospectors traveled to the Yukon to try their hand at sifting for gold and the possibility of getting rich. Alaska didn't actually become a state until 1959. It started out as a department of Alaska, then the District of Alaska, and the Alaska Territory in the intervening years between its purchase and naming it a state. Alaska is derived from the Aleut word Alyeska, which means Great Land. There are 2 official state holidays to commemorate the beginning of the Great Land State. Seward's Day, the last Monday in March, celebrates the signing of the treaty between the U.S. and Russia. Alaska Day is today, October 18th, marking the anniversary of the formal land transfer. There are 2 holidays because technically Alaska was purchased on March 30th, but the papers were signed and the formal transfer was arranged today, October 18th. The Americans raised a flag at Fort Sitka as the Russians lowered theirs, and 250 Army troops were in attendance. There's a celebration every year in Sitka. School is released early, and there's a parade and flag-raising reenactment. Not everyone celebrates Alaska Day as a victory. Native Alaskans protest the holiday because they believe it mistakenly places enthusiasm on the forcible take of their land and enforces the colonial structures that made Alaska part of Russia, or the U.S. in the first place. Similar controversies surround holidays like Columbus Day and Thanksgiving. And for today's music fun fact, we have Post Malone and Swae Lee collaborated and released Sunflower Today in 2018. Malone had teased the song 2 weeks before on Jimmy Fallon when he played a clip, and a week later, Swae Lee went public with his involvement. It topped the Billboard 100 chart and stayed in the top 10 for 33 weeks. It was nominated for a Record of the Year Grammy. The next year, indie darling Vampire Weekend covered the song on BBC Radio's Live Lounge. And now for our final segment of the day, I'm going to be looking into my own photo archives to see what I was up to on October 18th in my life. October 18th, 2018, I made the cover art for my song, I Feel Like Chet, which was the first single that I ever released with management and with my team. And so it was a very exciting day for me making this single artwork. I was very nervous to share my work with the people I was working with for the first time. And yeah, I've done so many different visual aspects for my music project, mxmtoon, between the podcast art even for this show. And so it's really cool that I was able to start doing more visual assets and graphic art and design and stuff for my project as early as October 18th, 2018, when I made I Feel Like Chet's single artwork. And that's all for today's episode of 365 Days with mxmtoon. Thanks for going back in time with me. And remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can come back tomorrow for more facts from yesterday.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365